Shalom and all praises due to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakak Wadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well over the flock of Israel. Shalom to you brothers and sisters out here. All the Akim pushing the words of truth and sincerity. Shalom. I'm reading today out of Matthew 17. I'm going to go into a little bit of the Transfiguration. I just went over this with a brother and I think it's proper and a good time to put it into video form. Before we get into the Transfiguration, Matthew 17, we're going to read the bottom near the end of Matthew 16, just to give a little context of what's going on, what the mood is feeling like at that time in Jerusalem. Now, Matthew 16 and 21, the left is King James Version, the right is the NLT. I'm reading from the King James on the left. It says, From that time forth began Yahushua to show unto his disciples how that he must go unto Jerusalem and suffer many things of the elders and the chief priests and scribes, and be killed and be raised again the third day. Verse 22, Then Peter took him and began to rebuke him, saying, Be it far from thee, Lord, this shall not be unto thee. And by the way, if you look here and it says reprimand on the right side, Peter took him aside and began to reprimand him. You know, reprimand is like checking somebody. It's like how a mother waves her, pulls her son aside or pulls his small child aside, puts a finger in his face, says, if you ever do that again, it's like a reprimand. So Peter was out of line for that. But he believed he was acting in the spirit. Verse 23, But he turned and said unto Peter, Get thee behind me, Satan, which these are fighting words. You can see that the apostles and the disciples and Yahushua didn't always have kind words to each other and kind action. It's not as if Yahushua took that moment to be the bigger man and say something like, Peter, I understand you're upset and I don't want to upset you. I care about your feelings and I understand your opinion, but you possibly are mistaken. He didn't do that. Instead, he said, Get thee behind me, Satan. All right. He called him Satan. All right. Which is probably one of the worst things you can call a man who believes on the Heavenly Father. Okay. It says, Thou art in offense unto me, for thou savorest not the things that be of Yahweh, but those that be of men. I mean, he took Adam right there. So, Peter must have been feeling kind of terrible after that moment in time, right? It says, Then said Yahushua unto his disciples, If any man will come after me, let him deny himself and take up the cross and follow me, right? So, now going back to Matthew 17, where the transfiguration happens, Matthew 17 and 1, After 6 days Yahushua taketh Peter, James, and John his brother, and bringeth them up into a high mountain apart, and was transfigured before them, and his face did shine as the sun, and his raiment was white as the light. This also is a reference to Exodus 34 and 29, where the same thing happened to Moses on the mount, coming down from the mount. Verse 29 here. And it came to pass when Moses came down from Mount Sinai with the 2 tables of testimony in Moses' hand, when he came down from the mount, that Moses wist not that the skin of his face shone while he talked with him. The same thing is happening to Yahushua right here on the mountain in front of James, Peter, and John. And it says, And his face did shine as the sun, and his raiment was white as the light. So there's a phenomenon happening right now. There's a miraculous event happening. And behold, there appeared unto them Moses and Elias with him. And the way I understand this, and the best of my ability, is similar to Star Wars. That hologram? That's pretty much what was going on in that time. It was almost as if a hologram of Elijah and Moses appeared. That seemed to stem out of Yahushua, or come from him. Then answered Peter and said unto Yahushua, Lord, it is good for us to be here. If thou wilt, let us make here 3 tabernacles, one for thee, and one for Moses, and one for Elijah. I've read this in other contexts or other some of the commentary on this, and they're basically saying he's making this statement out of fright, and it's he's not in his right mind. He's basically, he's trying to comfort himself and just say something. You get a little icebreaker moment in which you just something crazy and wild just happened, and the best thing you could do is just try to take the attention off of it. Well, it's not as if he really thought he was going to be able to build 3 tabernacles, one for Moses and Elijah. He more or less was bewildered at the whole situation, and that's just something that came out of his mouth, right? He says, while he yet spake, behold, the bright cloud overshadowed them, and behold, a voice out of the cloud. And just when you thought you seen it all, here comes a bright cloud hovering over Yahushua, who is now transfigured into Moses and Elijah with him. And I'll get into why Moses and Elijah was chosen to stand there. It says, behold, a bright cloud overshadowed them, and behold, a voice out of the cloud, which said, this is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. Hear ye him. As it said here, listen to him. Well pleased, he brings me great joy. Okay, you understand now what exactly is going on. Then answered Peter and said unto Yahushua, Lord, is it good for us to be here? Verse 5, while he yet spake, behold, the bright cloud overshadowed them, and a voice. Read that. I think I left here, verse 6. It says, and when the disciples heard it, they fell on their face, and they were sore afraid. So, two things happen here. Moses and Elijah appear in what we can only, explain as like a hologram or holographic type of situation, right? And Moses there, because Moses is who? Known for what? Moses is known for Exodus, of course. He's also known for giving the laws to Israel. In that very verse I read early in Exodus, he was coming back from Mount Sinai with the tablets in his hands. Those tablets consist of, right, 10 commandments, in which Moses also was responsible for giving more than 10, 613, and he also gave Israel the name of the Heavenly Father when they asked, who is him, who is our power that's going to deliver us. And then Elijah is here because Elijah happens to be the one of the most important, if not the most important prophet there is in the scriptures. Luke 7:28 says, for I say unto you, among those, I'll start at 26, but what went ye out for to see? Prophet? Yea, I say unto you, and much more than a prophet. This is he of whom it is written, behold, I send my messenger before thy face, which shall prepare thy way before thee. For I say unto you, among those that are born of women, there is not a greater prophet than John the Baptist. You see here? But he is that is least in the kingdom of Yahweh is greater than he. But he that is least in the kingdom of Yahweh is greater than he. We're just going to hearken on that words right there. Among those that are born of women, there is not a greater prophet than John the Baptist. When you go back into Matthew 17 and you skip down to the conversation Yahushua had after the Transfiguration, he tells his disciples this, verse 11, and Yahushua answered and said unto them, Elias truly shall, who is Elijah, truly shall first come and restore all things. But I say unto you that Elias is come already, and they knew him not, but have done unto him whatsoever they listed. Likewise shall also the Son of Man suffer of them. Then the disciples understood that he spake unto them of John the Baptist. So that Elias or Elijah is John the Baptist, who is appearing here in the reincarnation is John the Baptist, who was Elijah, who was John the Baptist in the reincarnation, as you can understand from the verses I just read, 11, 12, and 13. The disciples understood it. How come you don't understand it? You should be able to understand it if the Lord is supping with you. So now we understand Moses represents the law. He was on that side of the Lord, one side of the Lord. Elijah represents the prophets. He was on the right side or the other side of the Lord. And yet and still, these two great men, who the scriptures, obviously, you know they're great men. Yet and still, the Lord pays homage to Yahushua over them. In verse 5, while he yet spake, behold, a bright cloud overshadowed them, and behold, a voice out of that cloud, which said, This is my beloved Son. That is the Father speaking. The Father is claiming that his Son is Yahushua, who is beloved, in whom I am well pleased. Hear ye him. So who are we supposed to hear? Yahushua. His words. Over whose words? Over Moses' words, and even over the words of the prophets and Elijah, the greatest prophet, which was Elijah, John the Baptist. Now we have an understanding and clarity that Yahushua reigns supreme over everything that you think should be more supreme than Yahushua. Over the law, even over the prophets. He gets the glory, and what's going to happen is when Yahushua returns, he's going to get the kingdom, and he's going to restore it to Israel and restore Israel back to our rulership state. He's going to reign forevermore in righteousness. Okay? And well, he expects. So I wanted to read a little bit of just to finish it off of why verse 6, chapter 16 was relevant to read in the beginning. It says the fact that this section, this is from the notes, study notes. It says the fact that this section appears in all three synoptic gospels immediately after Yahushua's prediction of his death is striking. The passion, which means the suffering, predicted must have left a dark cloud over the disciples. They needed encouragement and hope. So remember, right before this happens, Peter must have been feeling terrible, man. Yahushua just called him Satan. He said, look, and then he basically cursed them out and corrected and reprimanded all of them. It says the Transfiguration and Yahweh's approving statement regarding Yahushua provide a ray of light and encouragement for the immediate circle of disciples, Peter, James, and John, and for Matthew's readers too. We can understand why they needed to hear that. That was encouragement, why they needed to see that. They both three witnessed Yahushua standing there in the midst of the great Moses and the great Elijah, and to icing on the cake, it was showing you that the authority over those two in her book, the law and the prophets, is given Yahushua. It's given to Yahushua. That's the thing. He is the authorizer and finisher of our faith. He's the authority underneath Yahweh. He's the authority. All right, so that was pretty much it. Lord willing, this is edifying for the flock. Till next time, Shalom.